Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. I am exploring strange sections, Jesse Jackson, and joining me is Lou.
Good morning, everyone, or whatever time zone you're in.
And the podcast mom, Karen.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, today we are talking Knives, the 17th episode of season 2, originally aired May 17th, 1995. An old friend asks for help from Londo. Sheridan is possessed by a strange creature. We are reviewing these in the order of the DVD, but JMS had said that they wanted Knives to be before the Shadow of Zahadun. Just because Sheridan mentions his wife in this episode. And that was kind of, they threw that as kind of a reminder that so that with they went to the Shadow of Zahadun, we would have been recently retired, reminded of her. I don't think it affects it either way, my opinion, but I am curious. By the way, a little housekeeping. For those of you who may not have the DVDs or the Blu-ray set, Tubi, which is a free service, is now offering Babylon 5 on demand. So if you want to go online, sign up for a Tubi account. It is totally free. You can watch Babylon 5 without having to pull out your DVDs.
Yeah, you don't even have to sign up for an account. I watch it I've been too lazy to sign in on my TV with my account, so I watch it without an account there, but on my computer I'm signed in. And fair warning, there are commercials. So
yes,
yeah. So if you have the DVD, that's way better. Yes. But yeah, there are commercials on TV. So.
But it is good to know that that there is that option for online recording. All right, let's start with you, Laren. Laren. Lou, I don't know, how did Laren come in this?
I have no idea.
It's our portmanteau.
Yes. Lou, tell me quick thoughts on this one.
Well, as you said off the top before we started, it's the Tale of Two Cities, but I found the Londo portion of the episode quite interesting and emotional, and the captain's part of the episode was okay. It had a couple of shout outs to previous episodes, so it was nice to know that Sheridan is now in the loop about Babylon 4, and Garibaldi once again is proving his mettle as a security officer by having a copy of the redacted files.
Aaron?
Yeah, the Londo story was way more interesting than the other story. The other story was pretty much, a must in all genre TV is someone being possessed by a spirit of some other race. I mean, that's you've seen it a million times in Star Trek and in Farscape, and pick your show. It's been on all of them. So I guess this was it put a little spin on it, being, they drew in the storylines of Babylon 4, and then, his wife and the Icarus. So, I mean, there were some okay parts of that story. It was not my favorite A story, which, again, I mean, I would like to say the Londo story was the A story, but I think they meant it to be the B story.
It's the A story for me.
Yeah, it's the A story for me as well. And the big plus in this episode, what do you think I'm going to say? What do you think I'm going to say? Do you guys know?
Bruce Sheridan playing baseball?
Bruce Boxleitner in a baseball uniform.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Sweating.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Hello. That was a big plus for me. Is
Oh, you
him
should
and
mention what happened on Twitter.
Oh, right. We tweeted about last week's episode, and Bruce Boxleitner liked it because yay, and I was fangirling so hard. Yeah, so that was. I mean, I'm like, he saw something that I was in.
Yes.
A tweet that I was in, but
Yeah.
it's the biggest brush with Bruce Boxleitner I've ever had. So I mean,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was very cool. I would love the B5 baseball shirt.
Mm-hmm.
The IMDb had a theory that Garibaldi had picked that up from the gift shop prior to Sheridan ordering it, sent back. I loved that. And I love the Deep Space Nine baseball episode. It was such a fun episode. I do wonder, since Babylon 5 doesn't have a holodeck, did they really have that much space for a batting cage?
That's the first thing I was thinking of.
Okay, but wait, could that not have been like a backdrop and them playing like on a Wii? Or, even though it was a real ball, I mean, it could have just...
there are golf things that do that, right?
Right,
yes,
right.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a combination of the two. Like beyond the pitching machine, I thought maybe, okay, past that, it's probably one of those like golf things where it just projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's
because that's an awful waste of space, if not.
Yeah, big time.
In the behind the scenes tidbit, they said that during practice or during the rough cuts that both Bruce and
Garibaldi,
the guy who played Garibaldi, right, were hitting the ball very straight. And then once they started filming, they were either tired or nervous, and they hit a lot of foul balls. So,
okay.
Yeah. Another piece of episode. This is the last episode to be written by someone other than JMS.
Wow.
Until we hit Day of the Dead in season 5, written by Neil Gaiman.
Ooh, Neil Gaiman. Well,
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
That's spoilers. But yes, so that is, he jokes that's why his hair turned gray. So starting on this second season, all of the third and all of the fourth and that fifth up until that episode, he has written every episode.
Okay.
All right. Wow. So let's talk about, I agree with you guys. I think this is and I said this right before we hit record, a tale of two cities, tale of two episodes. I think that the Londo storyline is amazing in a lot of different ways. I think it gave Londo some different muscles to play, and the Sheridan was meh. I mean, it wasn't absolutely horrible like TKO or something, but it was, not as exciting as you could want.
Is TKO going to be that one that we refer to as like the crappiest episode ever?
That would be if we ever run out of episodes, which of course we will at some time, but it would be interesting to have that discussion. What do we think is the weakest Babylon 5 episode? That is the Crichton one, right? What is the
Jeremiah Crichton?
Yeah, Jeremiah Crichton. Though I do love the bring me the sacred text. There's always a sacred text.
Yeah.
Yes, I do love that line.
I know I was actually the odd man out with Jeremiah Crichton. I think you guys liked it more than I did. So
yeah, I didn't mind it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yes. All right. So Sheridan, we've established that he has a curious nature. He loves hearing about conspiracies. He loves exploring different things. And so the word is that there is this kind of spooky part of Babylon 5. So, of course, hey, it doesn't matter that I'm the commander of this ship and that thousands of people count on me. I'm going to check this out. He ends up finding someone who is in very bad shape, dies very shortly, and he ends up being possessed by some kind of creature. So, Karen, let's start with you. Thoughts on that storyline? Go all the way to whenever you want.
To the end?
Yes.
I mean, I gotta say, and you guys know, again, I'm gonna say this every time because it's an excuse, I guess. But I love Bruce Boxleitner, and I think his acting in this was fine. Even at the end where he's really dramatic with the expelling of the spirit, I thought, okay, that could have been way overplayed, and I think he did it justice. I mean, again, it's a mediocre story, and I think if anyone could elevate it, it would be him so far on the show. And he made it so it wasn't painful to watch. I'll give him that. I think that it was interesting that they brought in like him seeing his family and the creature and all that to express the emotions of the being that had possessed him. That was an interesting take on it. But I do have to say, it really was a non-issue for me. I mean, I wanted to play solitaire on my phone while I was watching that storyline. And again, I watched this more than once. So I watched a lot of it before I watched Zahadun because I had them mixed up. And I was like, do I really have to watch that again? So yeah, it was pretty cut and paste for me. And I hate to be down on it because it was an adequate story. It was adequate. That's the best I can say for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lou.
To parrot Karen earlier. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Bruce's acting was fine in this episode. The events that he had were, that they were okay, but because he was passive in those scenes, like beyond his reactions to what was happening, of course, it wasn't quite as interesting as it could have been. It would have been, and I guess it doesn't really fit in with the motif they were going for with this alien creature. But if Bruce could have interacted more with the non-alien creatures, like if he actually would have talked to his mom and dad, or like they could have had like a Field of Dreams moment or something, I don't know. But yeah, that just it was just a passive. They were all passive events, so there was nothing really to get too excited about. And it's just it's just I think the thing that I got the most enjoyment out of was trying to figure out what the labels on his helmet and Garibaldi's helmets meant. Like the Sheridan's, it looked like the Cheeto tiger. I thought at first it was Tony the tiger, but I think it's the Cheeto tiger, if I'm not mistaken. And Garibaldi's, I have no idea what that insignia was supposed to represent. It's maybe some sort of winged bird or something. I mean, you have to see the back of the helmet to get the full impact of it. But and then Garibaldi using the grappling hook to pull him back was kind of like, okay. It's one of those things you just kind of buy. But yeah, it was, it was just what it was. There was no surprises. It pretty well played out the way you thought it was going to. As soon as Garibaldi gave him the data cube with the Babylon 4 information and talked about this, anomaly there, kind of knew where that storyline was going to end up. So especially once he got into the ship, then and it's one of those storylines where the audience is ahead of the episode for the most part, and when that happens, your interest just doesn't stay. It would have been cool if they could have shown some sort of flashback that was actually a perversion of his memories, because you could do that, because this alien creature is obviously so different than us that they could have misrepresented something that would really upset Sheridan, but they didn't go that line. They just in essence, it felt like what it was. It was filler, and I would have even rather given up some of that story time to fill out the Londo portion of the episode, because I really enjoyed the actor that played his friend Urza, and I thought Carmen Genzienzo. I thought he was really good, and I really enjoyed that storyline quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to spending more time talking about Londo's storyline. I think it's really well done. Darmok is the Next Generation episode where Picard ends up talking to someone who speaks in metaphors, right?
Yep.
And thank you, Google. And
I could have told you that. That's one of my favorites.
and by the way, I love that on Lower Deck, one of the officers on the if you don't watch the animated Star Trek series Lower Deck, they have a character who is from that race.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and you never know what he's saying. Now, sometimes because of the universal translator, they've explained he can have what we would call a normal conversation, but when it's just him in the hallway, it will be, when Johnson, hugged Mary. It's like, what? So which is very, very sweet. Yeah, I think the it would have been a little more interesting, as you said, if the visions had been a little bit different.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't want to, because they have had the Sheridan character has had visions, right? Where Claudia talks to him with the raven on her shoulder, everything. So maybe they didn't want to confuse that.
Yeah.
But I think it was a perfectly adequate, serviceable, just okay, we need to fill in this story. Nothing specifically that I disliked about it. I agree with you, Karen. I watched the episode once, and last night I had some time before I was going to go to bed, and I said, I could watch it again to get ready for our talk tomorrow. And I go, yeah, that's all right.
Right. Exactly.
So
yeah. Like I watched it early in the week because I was kind of chuffed after we watched the Khazad-dûm episode, and I thought, oh, I don't need to watch it again. And then I thought, I don't really remember what happened, so I watched it again this morning before we went on.
That's right. Yeah,
and I liked it a lot more the second time. So there's that.
And I do think there are some important things, right? Like Garibaldi says, here's all the Babylon 4 files that, well, why haven't I seen that? Because they've been confiscated, but here it is. And I also think it's realistic that with everything that's going on, I could see, I think it's realistic that Garibaldi are like, oh, yeah, that thing happened. Let me catch you up to speed. Like, it wouldn't be like the first thing you're sitting there talking to your new commander. Oh, and last year some weird crap happened. Let's talk about this, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I would have said Sheridan said, is there anything else you want to tell me? Yeah.
Oh,
there's your dog in the background.
There's Charlie. He's
hey,
speaking.
Charlie.
Yes.
Somebody's at the door, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So the only other thing I want to mention about that storyline, I thought the Sheridan storyline, I did like the beat between him and Franklin when Sheridan said to Franklin, says, "You remind me of your father." I thought that was a nice touch.
Yes, that was a very nice touch. All right, let's switch over. Londo gets a old friend visiting him, and it is. Let me double check to make sure his name's. By the way, I did love that as someone who does a music podcast, hearing Londo and Veer arguing about their favorite Centauri operas was a really nice moment.
Yeah.
And right. And I also love the fact that when they sang each other's part of the opera, they both enjoyed. Like, it isn't like, oh, that's crap. It was like, oh, they're both enjoying it and laughing at it. So that was a really nice light moment that I kind of, it's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Because that is what people do.
Yeah.
Right. You do debate that. You have that. Yeah.
I think Veer was the clear winner, though.
I think so, too. Yeah.
His song was catchier.
Yes, it
definitely.
Was. Both written by Christian, I can't think of his name, the guy who does the music for Babylon 5, he wrote those.
Oh, okay.
Okay, awesome.
So Urza Jado is the old friend of Londo, played by Carmen Argaziano. Yes. Pretty well known. I mean, in fact, his face looked familiar to me.
Yeah. Yep.
And I I'm looking at his IMDb page. I don't know what stands out, but it was, I thought this is going to sound, he looked like a Centauri. He had that bluster, that going, and it turns out that they are old friends, that they were dueling buddies, very close. One of Londo's, you would make the argument, closest friends, and they have a wonderful discussion. They get drunk together, and we find out that because he doesn't support the current regime, he is going to be canceled, as they say in modern times. Lou, I'm going to start with you first, and let's go up to right before the duel, maybe.
Well, it was a great intro for the character when he snuck up behind Londo and put him in a chokehold. Because at first you don't know who this character is, but then it quickly turns into that they're the old army buddies or war buddies, I guess, and they're both in the sorting house, whatever the name for that was. But it took me a little off guard because Londo didn't strike me as the military type, even though he's wearing like a military dress, but he always seemed more like a politician than a soldier to me. So I guess that just shows that you go through different phases of your life, and you can be quite different when you're younger than as to when you're older. So that was interesting, and I bought their relationship. I found that there was, you felt that those two people had been together through thick and thin, through a lot of intense times, and they referenced the battle that made Urza the hero, and it was interesting to see the quick progression of the falling out of the two of them. And again, we're getting into this whole territory of Londo's sins, and now it's made personal for him. And I'm really glad that they did that, because it's been, I think for Londo up until this point, it's been rather, he's been at hand's breadth or distance from it all. It's been more of a mental experience for him as opposed to an emotional experience, and this brings it home to roost with him, and I really enjoyed that from that perspective. So it was just a really solid, well done storyline, and all the actors, the three principals, Veer, Londo, and Urza, they all acted quite well, and I love watching Veer hovering in the background at times with the two of them, and they just kind of ignore him at times. And but it just reinforces my thought when we had that earlier episode about Veer, that why the hell is he sticking around? Because it's, he's treated like a second class citizen and he doesn't agree with what Londo's doing. So yeah, it was really, really well done storyline.
Yeah, I get the feeling that, and I don't know, but in my mind, they were in a fencing club in university together, is my feeling of that's where they had done that, and they had continued that, sport. I am not sure. I would have to go look if Londo was in the Centauri military ever, but that's what I got the feeling from me, and that was just, I think, my mind canon. And I think I would say Veer is staying there because he has nowhere else to go. The people on his family on the home world has no interest in him, and I think in his mind he is at least trying to stop Londo from totally being immersed in this crap that he's in. So Karen, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same as both of you. This was the most interesting part of this episode. It's one of those things where, and we've been talking a lot about how we have lost respect for Londo, the character. And at the end of the episode, when he does what he does, when he realizes that Urza sacrificed his life so that his family could be brought into Londo's family and to like regain integrity as long as he's gone, the integrity gets reinstated. I thought that was something that made me go, okay, he's not the worst thing ever, but there's still some issues that we have with him. We've said, I don't know what he could do to get back in our good graces. And I think there's going to be, and again, you guys can yell at me if you want in the background, but I think there's probably going to be times when we see a little bit of the old Londo peeking through, but there's still this huge block in the way of us liking him again. But I really did enjoy that Londo realized that his friend could have taken him out at any point, but made the fight look good and made sure that Londo took him out in order to save face. And I think that was the part of the episode that really stood out to me as the best part of the episode. I also did like the interactions that they had together as friends at the party, which, looking back, as Londo was looking back, most likely he realized that party was kind of the last hurrah, that Urza knew that he would be dead soon. And I think seeing that relationship between the two of them was nice to see. And seeing Veer kind of, hey, I wish I had a friend like that. I mean, that's what I took that as, him kind of looking on in the background. I thought that was good too, played well. Stephen Furst was really a great actor and very underrated. And I think he plays Veer really well. And like you said, that scene in the hallway where they're dueling classical music at each other was a nice little fun beat in the episode. So, I mean, this storyline was what made the episode good to me.
Yeah, I think about that a little bit. I think if you show someone a picture of Stephen Furst, they're going to think of Animal House, then probably St. Elsewhere, when I truly think that Babylon 5, and then of course we're biased because we're doing a Babylon 5 podcast, is some of his best work. He has a chance to play comedy. He also has a chance to play drama. And since I've seen this going on, I know he continues to have more meat to perform. So yeah, I thought that was really nice. I love the fact that Londo is just so confident. Like, I fixed this. My friend. Oh, yes, I have this power. One phone call. And no, it's not that easy, because Londo has started the ball rolling, and now then he's it's out of control. He's being used, and like, he even has that great conversation with Rifa, like, and I'm paraphrasing, dude, all that you've done is because of me. Wait, what do you don't forget where you came from, as we say down south. And no, Rifa has none of it. It's like, we're going to do what we've got to do. If you're not for me, you're against me. And we are going out, changing things around. So, Karen, you were on a roll. Talk to me all the way through the duel. Anything else you want to share? And then Londo saying that he will take those children and treat them as his own. I thought that was a very touching ending. That you talk about suicide by cop or someone. I know that politically, through tradition, my family will now be protected, because for good or bad, Londo's on the right side, maybe the wrong side, but it is the right side of the current political captain and, political atmosphere. So go for that.
Yeah. I want to say also that I honestly hate Rifa.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think he has no conscience, where I think Londo does have a conscience. And like, there's nothing redeeming about Rifa at all. And you knew from their conversation that Rifa wasn't going to do anything about it. He wasn't going to act on what Londo had asked him to act on. And then, we learned that he's actually the one that started the prosecution of Urza and his family. So that was, just reinforcing that Rifa's a really bad guy, and a bad guy in the way that he plays both sides of the fence, I guess. I mean, he didn't come out and tell Londo, I'll help these guys or I won't help these guys. He did, and then he didn't. He's one of those politicians that plays both sides of the fence, I guess. I mean, he wants to be on Londo's good side, but he also thinks that since he's on the homeworld, that he can usurp whatever goodwill that Londo has done. I think he's taken full advantage of the fact that he's on the homeworld, and maybe he'll get in there before Londo can. Again, that's just me reading into it. I don't know, but that's the feeling I get from him. And I do have to say, I liked the blocking of the fight scene as well, as they say in the business. I think that it was well played. It was not fakey looking, where a lot of these, you hear the da 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 da, the Captain Kirk fight song thing, and it looks really cheesy. But in this case, I thought they did a good job of that fight. The fact that Londo gets hurt, and you can see it, he's got blood on his arm, and it was a good fight. And again, the most redeeming part of this episode was that whole storyline. And I did love that Londo is humanized, and I hate to say humanized, I guess Centauriized a bit to me. It was nice to see him see this good part of his personality come out again.
Yeah, Flu.
My first thought was, when he was confronting Rifa, is why didn't he make a threat? The same like he would have, said, well, what happened to the Narn at blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't want something like that to happen to you and your family, would you? Like that, I don't know why he didn't make that threat. It would be interesting to see how Morden would have reacted to such a request too. So that's too bad that didn't play out in this episode. Maybe that will come down the line in another episode. But that was my first thought. Like, you've got this shadow group at your fingertips. Why don't you use it when you really could use it for for the benefit of somebody else, as opposed to just your own personal benefit. So that was, I don't know, maybe that's a weird thought, but that was just what sprung to my mind when that confrontation took place. But it just shows that I think the purpose of why they did it that way was to show that Londo's not as in control of his fate as he thought he was. So from that perspective, it is good, and I did like it in that regard. And like Karen said, the actual fight scene was well done, which is good, because most of the Babylon 5 hand-to-hand stuff has been pretty lame so far. So I don't know, and I really couldn't notice any stunt doubles. I think there was maybe one long shot. There might have been stunt doubles, but it's hard to tell. And I guess in this one particular aspect, that the Centauri hair helps cover who the real actor or stuntman is. Yeah, so I enjoyed it from that perspective. And the swords looked pretty good, but they were not the kind of swords I would expect a dueling society. I would think maybe I was just thinking fencing instead. And so those swords seem kind of brutal for that sort of society. But maybe there are societies on Earth that do use those kind of play swords of a similar cut that I don't know. And what else was there? the last scene with Veer was very. It doesn't totally give me sympathy or empathy for Londo, though I did feel for him a bit, but I just feel like he's given up. Like he's just locked into this path that he could have stepped away at that point. And even before the duel, he could have, like I said, he could have done something to prevent Ursa from being sanctioned, but he didn't. So I got these conflicting feelings about how he handled that whole situation. And as I said before, it just makes me ask again, why the hell Veer's sticking around? Because he doesn't agree with what Londo's doing either. And like, is he a spy or something? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Veer. Everybody's not as they seem. So I think we're going to find out some big reveal about Veer down the line still, but because he has to be something more than what he appears to be. I would love to see, like in season 5, all of a sudden there's a scene where Veer just drops all the bumblingness that he's got and just turns like into a real badass and sort of gives Londo his comeuppance or whatnot. But I don't know if that'll happen. But that would be a great reveal at the end of the series if that something like that does happen. And yeah, it's just sad to see a character that I really liked in the first season and a half fall so far so fast in this season. So it's still tough to watch, and all this stuff that we've seen, and maybe just because of the introducing the sword play and that, I get a real Spanish vibe now from the Centauri culture. It's kind of reminds me of like Zorro era stuff, but I don't know the way they dress, the cut of their uniforms and whatnot, and the way their food and drink and whatnot. So yeah, it was. I love the fleshing out of this character in that aspect. I like the storyline because it's really fleshing out Londo as a much more complex character, even more so than before. And I'm just hoping that with Chikar, we're going to get something similar for his background as well. So yeah, it's just reinforcing that the whole storyline of Londo going down a very dark path.
Yeah, I get that vibe as well, that kind of Spanish, Italian, Greek kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Where they're into the celebration, but they also have a military, and I do get that kind of vibe too. And I feel like we have to remember that ultimately Londo is selfish. So he may have given up, and yeah, I think he has a little bit, but there's also that part in his brain that says, if I stick it out, I can be someone. And I think that's his thing. And I think Veer just has no choice to be there. So, I mean, that's just me.
Yeah, one of the things, by the way, one of the notes they said is that the idea that if you kill someone in a duel, you inherit their family is from Roman times. So, but I do agree, this is very much very Spanish, and the whole idea of all this very lush uniforms and this huge dueling societies, I think is very, very spot on. The I love your suggestion, Karen, of would have Morden helped him?
That was Lou's.
Yeah, oh, Lou, I'm sorry. The idea, see, I don't think he would.
I don't think so either.
I think the idea is he's trying to, he has a grander plan. We don't know what that is yet. And I don't know if helping Londo would serve that plan. So I think that was really well done. We're going to see what happens next. Londo now has a family to take care of. And at this point, he's been very distant. Like, he kept the one wife because he had to, and it was the one who despised him the most. So, Londo, while he talks a lot about family honor, he does not seem that amazed in, he's not a big jolly family guy. I don't
Mm.
see him being Uncle Londo. I assume he doesn't have any children. I can't remember that, and someone may, you know, as our wonderful listeners do, may correct me, but I don't think so. All right.
Now he does.
Yes, yes, he does. Now he
Based on
does.
the relationship we saw in that one episode, it's hard to believe he had children with any of them, but who
Yes.
knows?
And we get a nice little callback to Adira, the dancer
Mhm.
that she's the one that got away.
Right.
In his mind, she is the one that if things could change, he would have been with her. All right. Anything else we need to discuss?
So I'm guessing that the reason Urza brought up those things was to remind Londo, in case this does happen, you get to take care of my family and I love them, so please treat them nicely. I mean, I'm assuming that was him planting those seeds.
Yes, what I believe is he knew he was doing suicide by duel so that his family will be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
A couple of things. I liked Veer's paraphrasing. If history repeats itself, if we don't learn from it, when he tells Londo, says, "Why make history if you fail to learn by it?" I thought that was a great line, and maybe it was just the fact that Londo was with a friend, and you kind of talk a little more harshly or say things that you normally wouldn't say in mixed company or whatever, but his disdain for the Narn was very evident in a couple of the scenes, which is another reason that I have trouble liking him as a character at all. So yeah, so those two small things stood out to me, and Karen alluded to it, like with the fight scene, but overall I thought this episode was really well directed. I love this. I thought there was a lot of great shot selections, and there was a good mixing of the practical with the special effects. Like I bought the scene with Sheridan with fighting the Guylorn or Bylorn or whatever the heck that winged reptile. Like his timing to the movement of the creature was pretty spot on. So yeah, I just thought that this episode had a lot of technical polish as well, which helped because it wasn't the most compelling of episodes that we've seen.
Agreed. Yeah, this episode, and especially that direction thing and the blocking and the special effects, I think that may be part of why people are so in love with the series. And it's showing me right now that I get it. I understand, because I'm liking that part of it as well. So
yeah, this is it's Stephen L. Posey, and he's directed 4 episodes of Deep Space Nine. He did one Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one Dark Skies, 2 Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, 2 Xena Warrior Princesses, 1 Babylon 5, and 8 episodes of Tour of Duty. And then so he's done a lot, and so that's kind of nice. Yeah, I thought this was good. I was happy with the episode. A couple of quotes that are on IMDb that made me smile. I think it's worth repeating. Londo saying, Veer, you have what the Earthers call a negative personality. Veer, no, I don't. And Londo, there, you see?
yeah, that was cute.
And then I love at the end where he says, I've made many choices lately, Veer, and today, for the first time, I'm not sure these choices were right. And I love that Veer says, well, perhaps some good has come out of this tragedy. It's not too late to make some new choices. Londo, no, the blood is already on my hand. Right or wrong, I must follow the path to its end. But Londo, you can go now, Veer. I want to sleep if I can. And, I think that sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for, and there's always a price. Magic always has a price.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Good.
does
interesting magic. Yeah.
Yes. Very nice. All right. If we don't have anything else, let's rate it. And Lou, you first.
I'm gonna give it 8 goblets of Bravari.
Ooh, I like that. All right, Karen.
Oh wow. Goblets of Bavari. That's pulling it out of there.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm gonna go as generous as 8. I'll knock it back just a little bit. 7.5. Baseball outfits.
Yeah, my
Classic
gut in,
Kukari.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I I'm between 7.5 and 8, so I think I'll go 8, because of the Londo and Veer stuff.
Yeah,
Dueling swords.
Clashing
Um,
Okay.
Kukari.
yeah, yeah. So it was a very good episode, and now then, we get into JMS writing all the episodes. So I'm curious to see where we go next with this thing.
I
Uh,
have something to say now that we're done rating the
yes,
episode.
yeah,
This happened last week while I was talking with my husband about the show.
yeah.
And after we talked about Zahadun last week, I wanted to talk to my husband about it because he's seen the entire series.
Okay,
And I make sure that he knows I don't want spoilers.
right.
But last week was me begging him to try and stop me from looking things up because
Okay,
I want to know what Kosh looks like. I want to
Mm,
know what the outcome of some of this stuff is. I really want to know, like to the point where I want to look it up on Google. But I am not doing that, just so you guys know. I'm not doing it. But I told my husband, this is the most I've ever been tempted to look something up about the show.
yep. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm right there
over
with you.
this last week. Yeah.
Yep.
And he was like, oh, well, yeah. And he does this thing. It's worse than what we do here. He goes, well, and he says things like, well, you'll be surprised. I'm not going to tell you anything, and it irritates me because that's what we do here. And then I feel like I want to vent to him, and he does it even worse.
that I love Sean sharing that. Thank you for telling that story. By
Yeah.
the way,
So
we're gonna give comments as we always do. We have an email from Texas Solid Shock. We have some comments on the YouTube, but I did get an email from someone saying, "Hey, someone posted spoilers," and at first I couldn't find it, but then I found it. I think they were minor spoilers. Someone was posting. It was in the thing about JMS had trap doors built into everything so that if he had lost an actor, he could do something else. And someone specifically mentioned some actor changes that are in the future. So it didn't give away any storylines, but it did give the idea that, oh, this actor may be leaving, this actor may be coming back.
that's pretty standard for a
I
show that's been 5 seasons.
Yeah, and
So
I also think that there yes, in a perfect world, it would be great to be totally spoiler free. But as Lou said, the cover of the box shows,
The Lynn.
that the Lynn looked different.
Yeah.
The cover of the box is going to show a different actor that you go, oh, wait. So, yes, try to keep it, but I don't think it was horrible, spoilers. And
That's
so, but I do appreciate someone
yeah.
emailing
Yeah.
me and saying,
if
hey,
I looked up what Kosh looked like, that would be a horrible spoiler,
yes,
I'm sure.
yes, it would.
So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But just so you know, I was sorely tempted this week.
You just got me thinking now, Jesse, about the actor that plays the fighter pilot. Why wasn't he the one that chased and caught Sheridan as opposed to Garibaldi? Was that
Right?
That's kind of weird now that I think
well,
of it.
yeah,
That
I
just,
don't.
Kessler? Is
Yeah,
that?
Kessler. I don't know if they
Oh,
just
Kessler.
wanted, like, he wasn't on there. I did, yeah, because that would have given him a little more lines
yeah,
and something to do, and it seems like
'Cause he
it would
isn't-
make more sense.
because he hasn't been around for a
No,
while. So whatever the
no,
network wanted from him, I guess JMS was just giving them enough to get him off his back. I guess I don't know.
yeah, absolutely. And I do love that we don't have a tractor beam. We have a
grappling hook.
a
Yeah.
grappling hook.
An actual
Yes.
grappling hook.
Yes. All right. So Karen, do you have Texas All the Shocks email up?
I do.
Okay.
Here we go. On the off chance you decide to do this one before In the Shadow of Zahadun, first off, what's your favorite opera? Do you guys have a favorite opera?
The one from Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
I don't
I think it's
have
Figaro or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah. No, it's not that Figaro. It's something else.
Figaro.
I have to look it up now.
a
Keep talking. I'm going to look that up because that's going to
Okay.
bother me. It's the marriage of something, I think.
Well, that would be the Marriage of Figaro.
Oh, maybe
But-
that's
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
I don't have an opera, but I have a favorite song, and in fact, the Pavarotti doing Nasum Dorma
Mhm.
was actually on my playlist for a while. It was on my that I would rotate that in. I love his performance of that, and just so whatever opera that is from, I would probably be mine. I I said this a few years ago. We went to see during Christmas. We went to see Handel's Messiah. You know, the choruses from Messiah,
Mhm.
and I said I felt like I was at a pop concert or rock concert where I only knew 2 songs from the band, and I only know a couple choruses. You know, the Hallelujah chorus and for unto us a son is given. You know, so I kept waiting for those 2 songs the whole time. Enjoyed the rest of them, but yeah.
I might be a music nerd.
Yeah.
I have done the Messiah sing along.
Oh, that's nice.
Where you take your, and I still have it, my, what do you call it? The book with the music in it.
Yeah.
Libretto, where you take the libretto and you go and you sing along with the chorus. I did it at the National Theater in DC, and it was one of the most fun things I've done in my life. I liken it to like if the Rocky Horror Picture Show was back in Renaissance times almost. Yeah. It's just very cool to do. But my favorite opera, I guess, is Tosca. I've been to see the opera, and I really appreciated it. It's one of those that made me cry, like, you know, Pretty Woman, like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. So I think that's my favorite.
Okay, nice.
So what was it, Lou?
It's from the opera, La Noce de Figaro, The Marriage of Figaro, and the actual piece is the duettino Sol aria.
Okay.
Sol, Sull apostrophe area.
And that is a beautiful scene.
It is.
Yeah.
Shawshank is a beautiful movie one way or another. Just there's so much good in that. But yeah, that is a great
my all-time favorite movie.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So on with the story, as Texas says. Sheridan is told of a place on the station that may or may not be haunted or something. So like the all-American boy that he is, he decides to go check it out and get spooked. What follows is a sci-fi staple. An alien entity enters his mind and begins sending him images, trying to communicate something. This leads to a tie back to the Babylon 4 storyline, reminding new viewers and maybe some old ones that Babylon 4 reappeared last year. And that's all Texas has to say about that storyline. Now on to the Londo story. We see again that Londo is extremely loyal to those he considers friends, willing to go against his current allies in an attempt to get the wolves away from Urza. And then he's willing to go along with Urza's last gamble, which had to be difficult. He would have known as soon as Urza laid down the challenge what he was planning. Londo knows all those rules that govern Centauri society, so he knew going into that fight that he wasn't going into a fight for his life. He was going to have to kill his best friend. Not just a friend, but one of the few people who will be straight with him. I love that we start off with Londo and Veer just having a moment of levity with something they both enjoy. It shows that despite hating what he's done, Veer shows here that he actually cares about Londo. I think it's for the same reasons the audience can't quite bring themselves to hate him. We keep silently urging him to be the man we all know he can be. Those are my thoughts for now. This is the Texas on the Shock signing off. Okay, Intel Svavini in Valen's name. I'm sorry, I butchered that, I'm sure. But in Valen's name.
All right. And Lou, how about our YouTube channel?
Yeah, we got some comments there. Though I got to be in. I have to admit that I thought there'd be a lot more because this is such a pivotal episode. But some good clarifications about in the shadow of Zadoom, or as I keep wanting to say in my head, Khazad-dûm, but that's another story.
Yes.
Iffy FSX says it's a bit confusing, but the Minbari driving back the shadows was 1,000 years ago, not 10,000. The last open war was 10,000 years ago. But 1,000 years ago, the shadows started rebuilding, and that's when the Minbari and others defeated them because the shadows were not ready at full force. It's in Delin's presentation. So that's interesting. But even 1,000 years back, the Minbari had space travel that long ago. Like I'm still not really able to lock down. And who were the other races that helped the Minbari? And is that something that we're going to find out? I don't know, but I'm looking forward
Okay.
to that. Mr. D. Delance takes on it as the shadows are like cicadas. They hatch every year, hardly enough to notice. Then every 6 to 7 years, you'll see a small swarm, but only for a week or two. Then every 13 years, they are all over the place. So that's a good analogy. I like that, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's what JMS pulled his idea of the swarm from. Then Texas Shock has a post about JMS rightly gets a lot of credit for having this all planned out, but I think he deserves even more for not being so wedded to the plan that it becomes a hindrance. And then I think the rest of their comments are about the spoiler things that you're talking about, so I'm not going to get into that. But that's interesting because I've interviewed a lot of writers, and that approach is not that uncommon. A lot of writers say they know the big points of where the stories are going to go, or how the story's going to go, but how they get from point A to B to C to D, that they leave open, and it's malleable because that way they don't lose. Because if they knew how the story turned out exactly, then it wouldn't be fun for them to write. So I think that with JMS, and you see that a lot of times, TV shows will start out on one direction and they'll see two characters click that they didn't expect to, and then the show will change direction to support that. The obvious example is the original Star Trek. They didn't realize that Spock was going to be so popular, and then his character just naturally grew in importance in the franchise as they realized that. So that's pretty cool. And then Iffy FSX says, now you have a taste of all the spoilers we were holding back. And that if that's just the taste, I can't wait for the full banquet. And then Iffy FSX shows that we have to be a little more precise with our language, because we talked about Bester's mind being wiped in that episode by is it Nadia? Natalia? What's the
Talia.
Talia. And he wasn't wiped. He was tricked into seeing something else. And we sometimes do lose terms loosely, but that's just a flow of conversation thing. We realized that his mind actually hadn't been wiped. And if he's back again, I guess this is in reference to what I was saying about Sheridan really being obsessed or irrational, or is he reacting like any else would in this situation? How could he react any differently? And I agree with you. My use of the term obsessed might have been a little inaccurate, but I was describing more the nature of his behavior, not the actual behavior. So that's just what I meant by that. Would Kosh and Delin finally debrief him, Sheridan makes the impossible choice to let Morden go. If anything, it's their fault for keeping him in the dark. Caution. Yeah, exactly. I think we talked about that too. Keeping secrets is never good, but a lot of fiction unfortunately uses that plot device to artificially create drama or tension. So that's why we say that. And then Simon says it's hard yet to explain why season 2 is considered better than season 1, especially as, in my opinion, season 1 has some better standalone stories than season 2. Some of it is plot based. Some of it is the people find Box Leitner a more animated actor than O'Hare. but most also lies in improvements in production values such as the better Centauri hair, more detail on costumes and set, changes to commonplace things like the door chimes, the Babcon home screen, that kind of thing. So I think he says that it, personally, I think it gets a little bit oversold about how it all gets better in season 2, since I also like season 1. And I would say that I agree with you from the perspective that I'm finding season 2 better, mostly because of the production values. I don't think, like, there's been 1 or 2 standout episodes this season, but I can't say that I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, it's, we've still got it's not totally serialized yet. There's these standoff one-off episodes. And I don't know if you can spoil this for us or not, Jizzy, but I'm hoping that the subsequent seasons do become more serialized, because for me, that's when a series can really kick on all cylinders. And I just, again, refer to the original Fringe, which went for most of season 1 as standalones. And it wasn't until, I think, the last episode of the first season that when we got the reveal of the Twin Towers and the alternate Earth, that the show embraced the serialized nature of the story. And that's when it, to my mind, that series elevated itself. So I guess we'll have to see about that.
Well, if you'll let me,
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to say this
Surreptitiously?
yes, by saying this is the last episode that JMS did not write.
Oh, okay. I
Okay,
got you now.
and so yeah,
Code.
so
Code.
yes,
Okay.
that I'm not saying all of them are going to be,
Mm-hmm.
8, 9, and 10s, but at this point forward, he writes every episode all the way up to that 5th season episode, which is one of my favorite episodes. So that is not even because it's Neil Gaiman. Of course it is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I do think that, and this will be interesting when we finish season 2, we may take a few minutes to drop up, is this last push of episodes, along with the couple of really well done episodes in 2, right? We've had the Coming of Shadows and the Shadow of Zahadun. Is that what kind of overrides the less than stellar episodes in season 2? So that'll
Season
be
1.
interesting to discuss. Yes, and then season 2. Yeah.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
And I'm going to mention here, since I answered him on YouTube, I said that I fall into that trap, that there is literally a trap that genre enjoyers like us, we have the feeling always that we have to let it sink in. We have to let it get going, because the first few episodes are going to be, world building, and we're not going to be into the characters and all that. And I say I fell into that trap, since it's true a lot of times. And I mentioned Parks and Rec, and I just want to stress this. I prefer serialized television, period.
Me too.
And with the good place, Parks and Rec, they're serialized. And the first season of Parks and Rec, while it's still terrible, I have a fondness for it, but it was definitely episodic. And when you get to the second season, it goes into these season-long arcs where she's running for office, where she and Ben are getting married. There's actually arcs in Parks and Rec. So, and I think that's part of why I look back at first seasons and think, oh yeah, they're good. But it really got going and on all cylinders when it became this arc-based, like Lou was saying. That's when things really get going for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's why I answered him, because I do know that it's a trap. And I think in this case, we're enjoying season 2 a little more. But I think once we get finished with it, we're going to look back on season 1 with a fondness because of the things it brought up. Does that make sense?
It does. Parks and Recs is on my list to watch.
You have to watch it.
And I have been told by multiple people that you can skip season 1, that you can start with 2,
You can, 100%.
Yeah. So for I think a lot of the reasons you're talking about this, right? So good. All right.
Couple more.
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
CPMF 2112, and I wonder if they're a Rush fan, but I will have to find out.
Yes.
Is they said that this it was excellent that this podcast for them because they was on a Monday morning, which they did not have a great start to. So we're glad that it's always gratifying for us when we're able to brighten somebody's day. That's one of the side benefits of doing these podcasts. So that's great. And then they and Karen get into a little back and forth about working with remotely with time zone issues and whatnot. So hopefully that's something that and Jesse, you have that
Yes,
experience right now as well. So and
I
I've had
do.
that too. So it was even worse for us because when I was at a particular point in my work, we were working with the Philippines, and they're like exactly 12 hours opposite from us. So that was a real
Yes.
pair to work around.
By the way, that's a he. His name is Mike.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
There you go, Mike. Mike 2112. Come on, comment next time if you're a Rush fan or not. You got to let me know.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last comment from Mr. Dedeland, and this is an interesting one because he says it's interesting that no one commented on Morden's reply to what Veer wanted. And if EXX backs that up, he says exactly, a bit surprised that got through the back in the day. I don't know that reference. I'm trying to figure that.
I think they were saying that he threw in an obscene gesture as he was flipping his fingers. I would have to rewatch
Veer
that.
or Morden?
Veer.
But they're saying that nobody commented on Morden's reply to what Veer wanted.
Okay, maybe I missed that. Okay.
He just kind of shrugged it off, didn't he? Or I guess I'll have to watch that scene again. I didn't pick it up, and I'll do that, and I'll respond to you guys on that one. So watch for an update on that post because I totally missed it. I just thought he would kind of like look whatever kind of.
Okay.
That's what I remember anyhow. I don't know if you guys remember anything different, but no.
I do
Interesting.
not. I will have to look at that.
That's why it's so great to share thoughts.
Agreed.
So we will look that up, and that is it.
Good. All right. So if someone wants to leave us feedback, how can they, Lou?
They can do it on the YouTube channel at Lou's Reviews, where you'll find the playlist for the Babylon 5 podcast, along with my reviews with or interviews with writers, Stephen King podcast, and Karen and I are due for doing another one. We just have to come up with the topic, I think. Or are we reading the Gwendy books? I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay. And we still haven't talked about that, so I'll have to go back and reread it.
Okay. And we also have our JKL Media podcast. I left the M out this time. Yay. And we've done several one-off shows, devs, Midnight Mass, and for example, and we're going to be doing a one-off on Blake Crouch Dark Matter today, so look forward to that one coming up shortly. And you can find me on Twitter at Lou's Reviews or at S King Podcast.
All right. And Karen, how can they find you?
I am at Ellevery on Twitter. And there is a link in my bio to my blog at which you can find a bunch of other links. And that's pretty much it for me.
Links within links.
That's right. That's right. I'm very meta. And I do comment on things on the YouTube channel. So if you leave your comments there, you get to me as well.
Absolutely. And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. I do have to give a plug. Set Listing Bruce is close to hitting 1,000 episodes, and Lou and Karen are going to join me for a special episode coming up that we'll show on this feed and on Set Listing Bruce. So please follow along. I have a couple of fun things planned for hitting 1,000 episodes, and so please check that out. All right, we have next week, we will discuss confessions and lamentations. The outbreak of a fatal disease among the mercab population prompts a panic on the station, and Dr. Franklin races against time to find a cure. So
yay, more Franklin.
Yes.
Yay.
So that will be fun. And I say fun.
The meerkat?
Meercab. Yes.
Meercab. Have we seen those people before?
That was actually the person that was sick. that in this episode.
Oh,
That was the
okay.
person. Yes, that
Okay.
was. Yes. So
Okay.
this is a fairly new race.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but Franklin talked about that he knew that doctor in this episode. So good.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. And thank you, listeners. We appreciate you being on this journey with us.
Here.
Please keep posting wherever you listen to the podcast. If you don't, besides the YouTube channel, go give us a 5-star rating. We'd love a couple more ice tune ratings for the podcast to help people find us. But for now, enjoy spring, and we will be back next week. Bye.
Bye.
Let's see.